Hello to all our listeners and welcome to Fulham Focus. I'm Don Love and once again I have the privilege of being your host this week. This week we'll look back at the Palace match and discuss not only the bad but more importantly the good to take away from the game. We'll also continue with our mini quiz series along with look at the Spurs' upcoming fixture. Lastly but not least, we'll briefly talk about the Fulham Focus Fantasy League. And we hope most of you are participating in this. If not, we hope you'll join us. Joining me today as co-host will be Mark Watt.
Hiya there.
Also joining us is John MacCormick, a.k.a. Jmac.
Hello.
So, gentlemen, not the outcome that we wanted when it came to the match. We really would have hoped for a better result. Obviously, we were playing against Hodgson, and we know that he really organizes his team well. Initial thoughts there, Mark, on how we did?
It's difficult, and even talking about it now, it is tough. But like most people agreed, the first half an hour, I thought we were excellent. We stuck to our game plan. We passed the ball well, and we moved it around the pitch nicely. But when Schlupp got that first goal for Crystal Palace, it really knocked the stuffing out of us a little bit, and we kind of lost our way a bit. So it was a game of mixed emotions, really. I mean, it was so great to be back in the league, and it was fantastic. The atmosphere was so good, but yeah, definitely a bittersweet kind of day for me. The big positive definitely was the fact that I could see the team were picking up where they left off. We still play the football we want to play, but yeah, it was definitely a big knock to go two behind.
Jmac, I know you were at the game. Was there anything that you saw that was incredible, or you could think of that was really positive about the team, even though we didn't get the result we wanted?
Slab out. Nah, I'm just joking. I personally, I was feeling like Mark, and then actually I rewatched the highlights just a few minutes ago, and I feel a lot more positive now. It was a very bittersweet day, but we just got completely royed. I mean, he knew what to do. I mean, I'll tell you, as soon as we had to switch sides, I knew we were buggered. I just knew that something was wrong. Like, we rarely changed the sides of the teams, and I just knew that.
Oh, you mean in the very beginning?
Yeah, I was a sneaky old Roy doing his black magic. Like, I just really, as soon as I saw that, I was like, well, this is it now. It's over. But
you think that was Roy getting a little dig in or trying to throw us off? That wasn't Fulham just not paying attention and going to the wrong side?
No, I think Roy knew what he was doing there. But I mean, I thought I take lots of positives. I take lots of positives from that performance, and glass half Fulham.
I watched the game, and then I went and I did a rewatch yesterday and was taking notes. And I know people they came out crying right away about, this and that and the team and how we did and woe is me. I was actually like you. I saw a lot of good positives, and I actually went back. I saw somebody had posted this on Twitter, so I went back to look it up. There's some really good stats that come out of this. Now, I know stats don't equal goals, but for our first game, we had Tom leading the way, or actually he's tied for the amount of passes in the league. He is tied with Siri, actually. So they're both tied for number 2 in the amount of passes. And actually, the amount of passes they made during that game was 93. So I think that's impressive. We had, believe it or not, this surprised me, Lee Marchand was 7th with 84 passes. I know a lot of people were putting down Christie. They said, they didn't think he had a good game. He'd be one to maybe replace for the next game. He's still in the top 30 for making passes in the league. He was 27th with 66. So I think there's a lot of great things to take out of this match. Another one was Mitro. He leads the way on shots. So, I think there are a lot of great positives to take out of this game. I know we didn't get the result we wanted. And again, stats don't make goals or, the bottom line is winning. But for me, we played a very certain style, and that is Slav style. Boys did very well. Their passing game, I thought, was actually much quicker than it was in the championship when we were in the championship. We didn't always connect the ball, and that's where some of our mistakes came from. And that's where Roy really hits you hard, is with those counters. Talk about that first goal, Jmac. Did you think that could have been stopped, or did you think that was just an incredible, quick turn, powerful finish?
I thought it was, I mean, from the other end, because I'm sitting in H5, it looked like an absolute worldie from the side, just a fantastic shot. I mean, it was a fantastic shot. I'm not going to take anything away from it. But what I will say was, I don't think, I mean, Chambers, yes, should have got there quicker and should have handled the situation better. But also, I think Fabry could have positioned his hands in a completely different way. But I mean, I can't really complain about that goal. A lot of people are, but I think that was an amazing goal, and I didn't feel bad about seeing that. I didn't really think there was much we could do with that, to be honest.
I thought the angle and the power that he put through that goal, I didn't think Fabry could stop it personally. So I can't fault him for that goal. I read online, through various media sources, a lot of people were blaming him, thought that he really could have done better on that goal, and especially the second goal. What do you think, Mark? Was he wrong to come off his line?
When I was watching it, obviously, I'm like Jmac, I'm in H6, so we were right behind that for the second goal. And when he came flying out, honestly, the first thing I said was, "What are you doing? You didn't need to come out." I don't think Zaha was close enough to warrant him running out. And
I agree,
because he didn't come out quick enough either. He was in no man's land. And credit to Zaha, it was a good finish. But I think I'm the same as you. I do put him down. I think that second goal is his fault. The first one, I can't see any complaints. I mean, if you're going to stick it top bins, that from so close as well, David De Gea would have a very, very tough time saving that as well. So I was not upset about that at all. I was more upset the fact that we'd actually conceded after being so dominant. But going back to that second goal, it was just kind of the way he ran out so quickly. It did annoy me a little bit. But then I'm with you, and I saw all the kind of people getting on his back online and things like that, and it annoyed me a bit because there was a moment just before then when there was a shot and it was 1-on-1 and he's got down so low and the ball's gone to his right and he's kind of saved it with his calf almost, and that for me looked like, I don't know if they got the expected goals. I know that's kind of one of the new stats that the Premier League like to have out there, but for me that would be a much more of a obvious goal scoring opportunity than the actual Zaha goal, and he managed to save that. So I think 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. So to be honest,
you're right. He made a big block. There are positives that Fabry did. He made in like the 62nd minute, Zaha gets a breakaway and he makes himself big, and he did catch it with like his calf, his leg, and he makes himself a great block. And then there's another one in like the 90 plus minutes where he actually does a full stretch, pretty good stretch to his left side, and he does another block that was up higher. So I do think there is a bit about him that looks pretty good. I'm gonna just be one of those guys. I know people aren't gonna like me saying this, but I didn't see anything special, and I didn't see anything that would warrant him being played over Betts. Okay, I am a Betts fan. I love him. I loved that he came in the last 2 seasons, halfway through the seasons, and stepped up big and did a worldly job, I thought, for us, a fantastic job for us. So for me, I'm very disappointed that he did not get in this side because, again, I'm not knocking Fabry. I do think he was responsible for the second goal, but he didn't do anything that was like, oh, my God, this has got to be our number one guy, or this guy should be starting over Betts. So that's all I'm going to say. Did you guys think that Fabry should have started over Betts real quick? Do you think Jmac, do you think he should have been the first choice, or do you think Betts should have?
I personally would have picked Betts. Betts has been, this goes beyond the sort of sentimentality of him waving a flair around. It's Bettinelli is just, some people have been saying that he's not Premier League quality. How do you know? He hasn't been in the Premier League yet.
Exactly.
And people are saying Sergi Rico and Fabry are Premier League quality. How do you know? They've never played in the Premier League. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that the Turkish league and some parts of the Liga are inferior to the Championship. So I'm just saying, I think there's something else going on. Apparently there's an attitude problem with him and Slav. I'm not too sure. But I'm very disappointed that Betts didn't start. He would have far more command over the back four than Fabry did that day.
I would agree. Mark, anything to add?
Oh well, seeing as you're both, loving bets so much, I've got to be honest here. Like, I agree. I think the work Bettinelli's put into the club, and it can't be understated. You mentioned he came in halfway through last season, and he was commanding, and we can say all we want that he's not Champions League quality, or rather not Premier League quality, but for me, I trust in Slav, and there could be a falling out. We don't know that, but at the end of the day, Slav has made these decisions, and they've worked. And if he's felt the need not only to sign Fabry but also to bring Rico in as well, and you've got to remember that obviously Betts' dad is one of the goalkeeping coaches. I mean, none of these decisions are going to be taken lightly. It's not a family affair here. We're talking about business at the end of the day, and we've got to do what's right for the club going on behind the scenes. So honestly, if Slav feels confident that Fabry is the right man to put in goal, I'm not gonna, say that we should have played Betts. Yeah, maybe he warranted it, but like people say all the time, football isn't a sport that you need to get so compassionate about, especially with the way that we pick the team. You just because you played well in one game doesn't mean you'll effectively play well in the next, and it depends what happens on the training ground, and we don't see what goes on behind those doors. And so I trust in the management to get it right. Maybe Betts would have done a better job, but who are we to say? Obviously I want to see him feature in the Premier League. I think he deserves it. But only time will tell, to be honest. We could be having this conversation in 6 months' time and be thinking, wow, Fabry is an incredible keeper. I'm so glad we stuck with him, and he's dominant, and he works hard, and all these great things about him, but we just don't know it yet. So until we can get a bit more of a solid kind of, understanding on the keepers, I'm fine with us keeping Fabry in the sticks, to be honest.
So
can I add
agree
to that, Don?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's just to say, going to Fabry's defence, I will say that the second goal, it was a proper Claudio Bravo moment, but Cesc set that up as well. Cesc was not marking the guy at all, and I think also Marchand completely lost track of Zaha. So in Fabry's defence, I will say that actually he was put in that situation. He had to act fast. It was the wrong decision, but his defender should have helped him better. And I think with us wanting Bettinelli over Fabry, I think we just need to move on now. We're watering dead flowers, and it's just not going to happen. I think we just need to accept Fabry is going to be starting for a few games until proven really wrong, and then Rico will come in.
And I'm not going to argue with either one of you. I agree with Mark. It's Slav's decision, and I'm going to trust Slav to make the decision. All I'm saying is I was sad that he didn't get the chance. I thought he deserved it. As far as that second goal, I agree, and I want to talk about this a little bit. Cesc as a left back versus Cesc playing further up on the pitch, more as like the outside wing in the midfield. When Cesc dropped back to the left back, he got beat bad. He did set that goal up. Now, it was an incredible ball that was put through, where it's slotted between Cesc and the outside or center back, and that beat both center backs. But again, this is where I just don't think Fabry should have came off his line so quickly. I think he should have held a little bit longer. So moving on, let's talk about a few other things about that game, because there's a lot to talk about. I want to talk about some of the other players new players that were in there. Brian on the outside, I thought did a fantastic job for opening day. Chambers, I thought, had a great game. I'm concerned about Brian, him having a knock to his ankle. I hope he's going to be able to play next week. And that's going to bring us into, when we talk later about Spurs, that's a little bit of a fear going into Spurs. I really would like Brian back on that side. As far as the other ones that started, Mark, your thoughts? Anybody stick out in your mind as far as our new signings or loanees that really just hit the ground running and you thought looked great?
Yeah, a quick thing on Jean-Michel Seri. I mean, I saw, again, Twitter is never the best place to go after a game. We all know that. And you'll find, so many people saying completely the opposite of what you always think, which is, fun. But honestly, Jean-Michel Seri, I can't big him up enough. I think when I watched him before, when we were linked with him and when we eventually signed him, all I could think about was how great a passer he was, and I was expecting his first time, these curved balls over the top and hitting the channels and being fantastic. But the one thing that stuck out for me was was his determination in the tackling and the tracking back. And I thought he covered that pitch so incredibly well in that first kind of 30, 45 minutes when we were dominating the ball. And he reminded me of N'Golo Kante a lot, the way he was, nipping around players' ankles, and maybe the possession would be lost and he'd track back and grab it as well. And maybe he lost his way a little bit in the second half. We weren't pushing forward enough. We weren't passing forward. And that is what I expected of him. But tackling wise and determination wise, we have got a seriously good player on our hands in him. And I said it to the people I was with, seeing someone in midfield with that determination. The last person I saw really like that was Moussa Dembele in a Fulham shirt. And so it's nice to have a player that you look at and I was excited about, and he got me up on my feet a few times. So as far as the debutants were concerned, I thought he did himself a lot of favours in that game, and it's obvious that he'll be starting every game. But yeah, he could quickly become a real important player for us.
I agree, and I got to say, if you think about the triangle, Tom, Siri, and McDonald, I thought all three connected very well in this first game. I thought both Tom and McDonald stepped up, did extremely great together. I was a little concerned about McDonald. I said in the last podcast, I really wanted him to make sure he had a great game, because he's going to be one of those key factors in this 4-3-3, preventing that buildup and that breakaway. And I thought he stuck his foot in a lot of places right. He did get a card. He knew he had to take that player down, professional foul, whatever you want to call it. But even Tom, I was a little nervous about Tom. He made incredible passes, little quick passes through the middle, taking it back outside to Assess and to Schuler. So I give kudos to those three. Jmac, who is your standout new signing or loanee that came in and you thought did an excellent job?
Well, first of all, we all hope Joe Bryan gets better quick. For someone who had a day and a half's training, he was fantastic. Obviously, Aston Villa fans are using some blood magic as well to get him injured, which is not very nice to see. But I mean, what I really was impressed with, I was impressed with Schürrle. I thought Schürrle's link-up play with Christie was really lovely on the eye to begin with, but he ran out of gas quite quick, and he almost scored a goal. I mean, if he was there a second quicker, that would have been 1-0 to us in the opening 20, 25 minutes. But what I will say is I was annoyed that Roy Hodgson turned the teams round, because I wanted to see what the defence looked like, first and foremost, closest to me. And I was really impressed with Callum Chambers. He wasn't fully there, but I'm very, very reassured that him and Ream, or dare I say Mawson, could make a very good partnership for us. And his ball control was fantastic, and I actually felt like he was a safe pair of hands that day.
So going to Schuler, I saw him put in some great balls across the goal. It was very sad that Metro and different ones couldn't connect, but I could see the thought process and I could see things happening. So I'm really happy that he was in. I agree. He did kind of run out of gas quickly. The big thing for Schuler, though, is got to be the penalty that we got to talk about. Jmac, did you think it was a penalty?
At the time, no, but then I watched a little show called Match of the Day, and it definitely was a penalty. I mean, I think it was like a clear penalty when you actually look at it, but I can understand why Mike Dean didn't give it at the same time. It was very tricky. It's because it doesn't look like much if you see what I mean. I think absolutely a penalty. And what's annoying about it is if that was given, it would have changed the game. It would have been 1-1, and we probably could have pushed on for a draw. Or if not, maybe a second goal and make it 2-1. I don't know.
I think the thing that surprised me is Mike Dean is usually quick to give these things. And so I was surprised he just didn't.
I completely agree. He usually makes calls that are quite quick and rash in that regard. But at the time, I didn't think it was a penalty. I thought it looked quite soft because I was on the other end. But actually, now looking at it, it would be nice for some VAR. But, that's football. We can't do anything about it.
Mark, did you think it was a penalty?
Yeah, 100%. And what baffled me the most about it, you can give it or you don't give it. But if he's not going to give it, then you're suggesting that Schürrle's dived. So where's the yellow card?
Right, exactly.
It's one or the other. So it just baffled me completely. I didn't understand what was going through Mike Dean's head. I didn't think he had an incredible game but that was the kind of the sticking point for me, was you either give a penalty, and if it's not a penalty, then surely you think he's died for it, and then naturally you give a card for that. If you're not going to give a card, then what is going through his head? So yeah, it's just another one of those decisions, that you wish could go the other way. And yeah, just a shame really, because when we all watched it back, obviously being in a hammy, it was so difficult. I had no idea it could have been anything, and I would have still shouted penalty. But yeah, I guess you just got to take it with a smooth. Hopefully, we'll get those decisions coming our way in the next few weeks. But
yeah, and I will say I did read where some people online were saying this is why we need the VR, and I say absolutely not. I don't want it. I know this could have came back, and they probably would have looked at it and said, "Yep, it's a penalty." But I'm telling you, I attend games at the MLS here, Atlanta United, and I've seen what it did in the World Cup. And I just want the game to move on. I don't think we need to be stopping every second, analyzing every little thing. I'd rather we keep moving on. So with that in mind, I want to know what you guys think the big difference was between the first half and the second half. What made us kind of all of a sudden just, to me, fall off the pace? At least that's what I was thinking. What do you guys think we could have done in the second half to change things? I'll start with you, Mark. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it was a case of needing to change anything. I think the team we put out there, I think the first 30, 35 minutes showed me that, this team can play football, and to the same degree that we were playing in the Championship, fluid passing, Sessegnon was working hard, and Schürrle was, doing his best to cut in when he can. And so I think the team itself was doing everything we needed to do. But that goal just knocked it out of us. I really think it did, and because we were so dominant in the first half, and when it went in, our heads just dropped. And I don't think it was a tactical thing that we needed to change as such. I just think we needed to, focus a bit more and have a bit more of that, spirit that we've grown accustomed to in the second half of last season, and just stick to our own game plan. I mean, Hodgson, what can you say? He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows the club, and he's got a very, very well drilled Palace team out there. None of those players that started were brand new signings. They were just they knew exactly what they were doing. They were drilled, and yeah, I mean, if we'd have changed it up and the scoreline had stayed the same, we probably would be saying, why? What was the point in changing it? So I wasn't overly concerned at half time. I thought, stick to the game plan and we'll be okay. But it wasn't meant to be.
All right, I'm going to be moving on here, but before I do, Jmac, is there any last thoughts about the Palace game, and more particularly, did you see anything out of Palace that made you think, wow, we're playing in the Premier League now, it's completely different than the Championship, much higher standard?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And the fact that goes hand in hand with what I was going to say about that, we got the stuffing knocked out of us as soon as they scored the first goal. And they were sitting back doing like a Roy Hodgson sign, like a sort of just waiting for the counter every time. And then they stepped up a third gear, which we are not used to. We've realized what the Premier League is really like in the last 45, like the later stages, first 45 minutes. And then as we progressed, we got more tired and they wanted to kill the game more. Unfortunately, on another day, I think we could have won, and on another day, they could have beaten us 4-0. It's strange. But you can actually see, I actually felt quite scared at one point. It was when Zaha and Townsend they missed the chance together of link-up play, and they just smiled at each other, thinking, like, we're going to get them. And it was just this sort of hyena-ish sort of quality. I was just like, oh, God, they're toying with us now. But yeah, I could definitely notice what we've got a match now in quality.
All right, I'm going to move on. My last thoughts, though, on that game are a couple of things real quick. One is that Hennessy, he was like the game changer for me. He had some incredible saves. And if it weren't for him, I think we would have been up 2v1, especially if we'd have gotten the penalty our way. I think that really would have changed the flow of the game and how the game was being played. Wasn't our day. That's all there is that we can say. All right, we're going to move on. For the listeners, if you didn't listen to our podcast last week, shame on you. We are doing a quiz now every week, and the quiz is going to be with 5 questions where I will give these questions to our co-host, and they will think about it, and when we come back to the end of the podcast, we're going to come back to the quiz, giving you a chance to maybe Google the answers and cheat. And we'll see how well our co-hosts do on the quiz. Now, this quiz is usually going to pertain to Fulham and its upcoming opponent and how it ties back into Fulham. So let's start with the first question, guys. During the early part of the Great Escape season, we drew 3v3 with Spurs at the Cottage, with Kamara scoring an outrageous overhead kick at the hammy end. Who was the Spurs goalkeeper that he lobbed in the process? So the question is, in that game against Spurs, Kamara scored an outrageous overhead kick in the hammy end. Who did he beat? And what was the goalkeeper he beat in the process? Second one, this is a odd one out. Pick the one that doesn't belong. Which of these former Fulham players did not score against us while they were playing for Spurs? Davies, Johnson, Zamora, or Berbatov? So again, which of these former Fulham players did not score against us while they were playing for Spurs? Davis, Johnson, Zamora, and Berbatov. Third question, true or false? Steed played more games for Fulham than he did for Spurs and Sunderland combined. True or false? Steed played more games for Fulham than he did for Spurs and Sunderland combined. Question 4. Name the season. Fulham upset the odds by beating Premier League side Spurs at the Cottage in the 4th round of the League Cup. Goals from Barry Hells, Wayne Collins, and Horsfield sealed the win. Name the season. So one more time. Spurs at the Cottage, 4th round. We beat them. Goals were from Hales, Collins, and Horsfield. Sealed the win. Name the season. Who was the last player to score against Spurs? Who was the last, this is your 5th question, who was the last Fulham player to score against Spurs? And again, later on in the podcast, for you listeners, we are going to answer those questions. We'll have the co-host answer first. Hopefully you guys will be able to Google them and you'll know the answers ahead of us. But moving on, I want to go into, more importantly, we know how we played against Palace, looking at Spurs and how we're going to line up and play against them and what changes you guys think we should be making. So I want to start with you, Mark. Is there anything that you would change from Palace to Spurs as far as how we play or a player going into the next competition?
I mean, it all depends for me on Luke Bryan's injury, to be honest. If he can play, then obviously I want him to start. He was one of my standout players in the Palace game, so hopefully he keeps his place. I don't like changing the team too much after the first couple of weeks, and obviously we don't want to be. Our defence is quite thin at the moment. Obviously, we've still got Adoy suspended. This is his final game of his suspension after the red card in the final.
I think that's hurting us.
Yeah, and obviously no Tim Ream and no Alfie Mawson. I think keeping the back five the same if we can with Brian's injury. Obviously, if we can do that, I think that's sensible. People may be asking whether Christie should lose his place because of how he wasn't fantastic in the attack. But honestly, I think in a game.
Hold on, let's go back to that real quick. So Christie not being good in the attack, is that something you would agree with? Because I thought the opposite. I actually thought he got up there quite well and put some really tasty balls across the
I don't know. I thought you're right in the positioning aspect, and I thought he did overlap well and he did everything he was told to. I don't know, maybe this was just my impression watching it at the Cottage. I just didn't see, he put in the crosses. I didn't see them any real crosses, really connect that well. I didn't see, it wasn't a fact of the Mitro getting on the end of it or Sessegnon or whoever it may be. I just didn't think they were, either the timing of the crosses or the actual cross itself just wasn't on target maybe. You may have had a different view of it watching it, but for me, I just didn't like it going forward. I thought it looked a little bit, forced at times, whereas last season we were used to kind of Fredo kind of getting to the byline and cutting it back. We kind of switched it up a little bit, which I don't know. I didn't think it worked that well. You may have a different thought on it.
Well, and that's the beauty of this. It's all our opinions. That's, this is just our opinions. It's not like we're professional analysts and what we predict is going to happen. But I liked actually Christie's strength. I thought him, Kamara, McDonald, Mitro, their strength at this level, there were some really tough challenges bang on hard challenges. And I loved how they weren't just taking it, they were giving it. So I thought it was a little different. I loved, actually, there was one point where Christie comes back. I think it was in the first half. He really showed pace. He came back and he stopped a ball coming into the center backs. So I personally, I wouldn't mind seeing him start again.
Yeah.
Jmac, let me ask you this. When it came to the transfer window, if you look at the differences between us and Spurs, I know Spurs like to leave it late. We brought in 12. They brought in none. Do you think that's going to have any impact on how we play against them? Or do you think, that just says Spurs, you've been playing well together, there's no reason to change, they're just going to dominate?
I hate to sound negative, but I don't think it'll make much difference. I mean, I think it's good. I think it's good that we've got any of these players, and I think Christie, to add to that, is a blunt Ryan Fredericks for now, but I reckon he will improve. The only thing that disappointed me was a bad pass that a late pass he gave to AK in the latest stage of the second half. But I think our secret weapon for against Spurs could actually be Scott Parker. I think he might.
That's a good point.
Give us a little bit of intel of what to expect and what we could do to really nullify them a little bit. And I think that's our secret weapon right there.
That's a really good point. So if you look at, like I said, Spurs brought in 0 when it came to their window. But one of the positives that they did have, I think, was in their attack. And they play a 4-2-3-1. And in playing that 4-2-3-1, they're going to have more lines of both attacking and defending than we do. We tend to push everything up. And when we push everything up, our attack tends to be more on the arc with only our 2 center backs in the back. And I think that's where we get kind of caught. And this is where, K-Mac has got to be essential in defending that breakaway and that buildup. Do you guys think there's anything in Spurs, especially with their attack, that we should really be watching and be ready to defend against? How about you, Mark? I'm sorry. Start with you.
No, it's fine. One player I've been really impressed with is Lucas Moura. He kind of came into that Spurs side and didn't really have his own position. I think Heung-min Son had such a fantastic end to last season that it was difficult for him to get in that team. But watching him in pre-season and against Newcastle, I thought he's quite an intelligent player, which I think it's going to be difficult. Obviously Dele Alli is always a threat, late runs into the box and such. And we played Spurs obviously in the FA Cup when Harry Kane got that hat-trick against us at the Cottage. So we know how they can hurt us. We know exactly, how that attack works. They're quick passing. They create the space early. So it is just going to be a case of containing. You're right to point out, K-Mac is going to be hugely important there, breaking up the play. And it'll be interesting to see if Johansson features, because I think that's probably one of Johansson's strengths is kind of gauging the right time to defend and the right time to turn it into attack. So maybe K-Mac to start, and then maybe see Johansson come in a little bit earlier than he did against Palace, and who knows, maybe playing alongside K-Mac instead of replacing him. But I think that is where the game will be won, in that kind of midfield battle area. I'm not holding out too much hope, because Spurs are a very, very dangerous team. I mean, make no mistakes, they didn't sign anyone, but you don't. I don't think you always need to sign. They got hammered for not signing anyone, but their team is very, very good. So
I think their team's excellent. They finished well last season.
Precisely,
yeah. So I don't see. I agree. There's not always a reason. If things aren't broken, don't change it. It's that old age adage. So the one thing that they are going to be missing again is Son is off playing the Asian game. So Son is not going to be available for this game. So that makes you almost think, well, maybe this is a good time to be playing them. One of their key players isn't there. J-Mac, is there one player for Spurs that we need to be watching for, or is there a weakness that you think we can take around and dominate or take advantage of?
Christian Eriksen, all day long. Like, he needs to be stopped. I think what we need to do is possibly, it could actually be a moment. I think we might see him at least as a substitute of Anguissa, maybe. I think I said that right.
Did you see the rumor? Did you see Real Madrid are after him? There's a
What?
chance. It sounds like listen. This is what I read. I read it on several places. There's a good chance that Modric might be leaving, and if he departs, supposedly Real Madrid would be after Eriksen to replace him. So.
Oh, I thought you meant Anguissa.
I thought you meant Anguissa.
No.
I thought I'll take 100 million for him if they're coming for it.
God almighty.
No. So, maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe Eriksen will depart and we won't have to deal with him at all. But that is the rumor currently. And again, that goes back to what I said last podcast. It's a shame that all of Europe, including England, don't close the window at the same time, because now Europe clubs come in and they poach off of other players. Still,
Yeah.
So
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, another thing we potentially have in our favour is that Harry Kane has never scored a goal in August until now. So, it's just, I just feel like it's going to be such a Fulham set. It's like the Sunderland home game again. You know what I mean?
Right.
I hope somehow we can avoid that voodoo, but I mean, it is asking for it a little bit. But that is on our side. If superstition is actually a thing, that is something to believe in.
Okay. And for me, the positives are we're going back to Wembley. Okay. We were just there. Great result at Wembley for us. I don't see why we can't have another great result there. I'm not saying that we're going to nick one away. I'd love if we would nick it and just take it all, but I don't see any reason why the players should be going there and be scared of Spurs at all. I don't see a reason why we can't get at least a tie and get a point out of this. Either one of you say anything different?
I mean, I'd love us to go and get all 3 points or get the draw. It's one of those games where you just, like the Palace game, we're so uncertain of how we're going to fare, and I think we like I said, we showed good glimpses of what we can do on Saturday, but it's so difficult to call at the moment. We obviously think that this Fulham team are special, and we know what they can achieve. We know what they can play like. So, who's to say we can't go there and hold them out for the first half and then go ahead down the other end and nick a goal? I don't want to lose our record at Wembley, as I'm sure the team don't want to do it either. So, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So, Jmac, that's going to bring me to, let's talk about our lineup.
Yeah.
What do you think our lineup should be going against Spurs? And we're going to assume that Slav is still going to stick with his 4-3-3.
I think he will stick with a 4-3-3. There is an argument at some point in the future of this season that I'll bring up on another podcast another time, that we could go 3 at the back soon, just by judging by the amount of centre-backs we have and allowing Schürrle to play on the left with beside Mitrovic with Sessegnon as a wing-back on the left. But we'll talk about that another time. I think we will remain pretty much the same, actually. I think Slav is we know what Slav's like with his when he picks his squad. He's very stubborn. I don't think he will make much changes at all. In fact, I'm pretty sure that it will actually be more or less exactly the same. I would personally maybe like to see Mensah start, just to actually see how his speed is compared to Christie's. But perhaps, I could see Le Marchand being on the left as a left back. But then I wouldn't actually know where we'd be in the centre back to replace him with, because Joe Bryan might still be injured, you see.
What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I agree with Jmac. I'd like to see Fosu Mensah, I really would, just because he's come with a lot of pedigree, and a lot of Man United fans were excited, that he could get the game time. So I would like to see him feature. I think that'll be good. If not for him, but also for all the fans, especially to test him out against a very good Spurs side. But no, I agree. The 4-3-3 will stay, and I think we will line up very similar to how we did against Palace. I can't see any huge changes, unless, like we said, that Luke Bryan's injury is a bit heavier than what we'd first anticipated. But same 11, and we've got to try. So give it all
for
we've
both
got,
of you, really the only change is if Bryan's injured, dropping in Mensah. Other than that, you would stick with pretty much the same lineup.
Yeah,
Jmac,
I think
is that
so.
right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I put Le Marchand as a left back, and I get another centre back next to Callum Chambers, definitely. And I think actually Mensah can play at centre back. So yeah, I think that might actually happen.
So I know a lot of people would take Christie out. I really would stick with the back four. I got a bad feeling Brian's going to be out with a knock, and I would drop Mensah back in there. Some people say, well, drop Siri, or I'm sorry, drop Cess back there. He plays left back. But I'm not convinced right now, especially at this level, that that's what he should be doing. I feel like we need somebody stronger back there and let him keep going up forward. And that's even though a lot of people are saying, well, Palace had him in their pocket. Cess didn't really show anything. To me, Cess did show several times that he could take on the player and he could beat him, and he put in some good balls, I thought. So I'm fine with Cess being in there. I don't think he needs to be taken off and somebody else put in there. I will say,
want to show. Sorry. Man.
Oh yeah, he's going to want to prove himself. He's not going to want to back down and say, "Look, I can't do this." And I think that's what all the players are trying to do. They're all going to try and prove, "Look, I'm here and I belong at this level. There's no reason for me not to be at this level." And that's the beauty of the way this team is right now. Yeah. So let me ask you this: okay, if we're all going to kind of pretty much stick with the same lineup, I have to go back to playing at Wembley. Do you think, because these players a lot of them weren't really part of that Wembley team, do you think they're going to understand just how special it was being at Wembley? And do you think they'll be able to feed off that vibe? Now, hopefully, we will produce another white wall. That would be awesome if we could pull that one off again. But do you think they're going to get the same vibe and still play just as hard or play harder, actually, because this is Wembley and very special to us?
I personally think that I really hope we do show the white wall again, and I hope we all sort of remember the feelings that we had when we were there. But I think honestly, it's a lot more of a neutral ground this season than it was for Spurs last season. Spurs, this isn't really Spurs' home. They're going to go into the new toilet seat stadium very soon.
No, actually, I just read on several websites that supposedly, I didn't catch the amount, they made a secret payment to the FA so that they can stay there through the 2019 season because they're worried the stadium won't be available. So I don't know how much. I wonder how much of that goes into Khan's pocket, as far as rent.
Well, yeah, maybe the deals are even secretly done. You never know. But I think we have a fantastic opportunity to make Wembley just as much our home as it is theirs. And I honestly actually believe we can get something out of this game. If a draw, definitely.
Okay. So, guys, I want to move on. And every week now, when we do our preview of the opposition that's coming up, we have a question that involves a player focus on Fulham. And that question we ask actually online, Twitter and Instagram. And this is where you guys are asked to turn on your football manager skills and think tactically. What player is going to be key and pivotal for Fulham to get the good result or the result that Fulham need in the next opposition? So, again, which player is pivotal for Fulham to get a positive result in the next match? We want to think tactically and consider the opposition's strengths and weaknesses, etc., when considering your answer. So, Mark, like I said, what Fulham player do you think is key in the next game?
Well, I said, before, Brian would be the one that I'd say is the one we need to focus on. Maybe I'm just going to say in general it will be the left back position because we're not sure, if he'll come back in time for that. And the reason I say that is because, Spurs are a free flowing side. They like to kind of draw you out onto the wing, then whip the ball in and Harry Kane or Dele Alli or whoever it may be to get on the end of it. So I think those channels are going to be really important. The reason I went with the left-hand side is twofold, really. The first one being that could be pivotal if Sessegnon is forced to play there. Then it becomes a different game entirely. We're not still certain on how well he'll adapt there, especially against quick wingers where technically he's got to be quick on his feet on the turn and put in some big tackles. But secondly, it's because, like Jmac said, Christian Eriksen is such a threat. If you let him roam, he will go wherever he wants to go. And a lot of the time for him, he'll drift out to that right-hand side and he'll try and cut in and whip in a ball on his left foot or try and send in a free kick from that side. So I really think that's the kind of danger area. Being a defensive-minded player, in my heyday, I make it sound like I'm any half a good footballer, but I'm not. But as a defensive-minded player, I always kind of look at that as kind of the most important thing. And as much as we need to go out and score the goals and we need to have a good, a good forward presence on Saturday, I really think that left-hand side area could be hugely important, and hopefully we can get it sorted, and Christian Eriksen doesn't just bully us all day rather, with those terrific through balls that he can conjure up.
All right, Jmac, so same question to you. What would be your Fulham player that you think we need to focus on in order to get the result we want?
I think Mark's analysis was pretty perfect, and especially when he said about the left-hand side. So I'll simplify it. I think Mitrovic. Mitrovic had a handful of shots that he should have converted a few days ago, and he'll know by hearing what everyone else is saying and also looking in the mirror that he needs to put those away, and also that everyone needs to get the ball to him quicker. That's what everyone's been saying. So I think Mitrovic has got a big point to prove in this match, and I honestly believe that he can probably actually step up for this one with the shots and convert them.
Okay, so for me, again, I'm going to go back to the defense. I really think Chambers is going to have to step up on this game. And the reason being is because Lee Marchand just, I don't know, he didn't super impress me in the last game. I'm not knocking him. I'm not saying he needs to be dropped. I know there aren't a lot of other options out there, and I still think he should be in the back four. But I think Chambers actually is going to have the better game. I think he's a stronger center back. And I think I seriously see him sealing his position as being a center back for us in almost all lineups. And again, one of the things I'll go back to about him, and I think this is where he's key as far as, especially if he was playing with Ream. Again, to the passes played that day against Palace, he was ranked 14th, and he had 73 passes out of the back that day. So for us in the attack, getting the ball out quickly, I think he's going to be key, and that's going to be my player to focus on this week. Moving on real quick, I want to finish out with a quiz, and then I want to talk about the Fantasy League. So again, let's go back to the quiz. The first question again was, during the early part of the Great Escape season, we drew 3v3 with the Spurs at the Cottage. Kamara scored an incredible overhead kick in the hammy end. Who was the goalkeeper? Jmac, who do you think it was?
I think it was Paul Robinson.
Okay. Mark, who do you think it was?
I also think it was Paul Robinson. I'm pretty
You're
certain
right. It was Paul Robinson.
Yeah.
Odd one out, guys. Moving on to question number 2. Odd one out. Which of these former Fulham players did not score against us while they were playing for Spurs? Davies, Kajohnson, Zamora, or Berbatov? Your answer there, Mark, would be?
I'd probably go for Zamora.
Okay. And Jmac, what's your answer?
Berbatov.
So Zamora is correct. And the reason being is because he only played for Spurs one season. Davies scored twice against us, Kajohnson once, and Berbatov scored 3 times against us. So moving on, question number 3. This is true or false. Steed played more games for Fulham than he did for Spurs and Sunderland combined. Jmac, true or false?
I'm a bit stumped with this one, so I'm gonna go with true.
Mark?
Altogether, I don't know. I'll go false.
So the answer is actually true. He played 211 games for Fulham and only 208, not many less, for the other two combined. So he did play more games for us. Number 4, name that season. Fulham upset the odds by beating Premier League side Spurs at the Cottage in the 4th round of the League Cup. Goals were by Hales, Collins, Horsfield to seal the win. Name the season. Jmac, what season do you think it was?
I think it was 03. Sorry, 03, 04.
Okay. Mark?
Oh, I could be further out than I thought. I was going to say 98, 99 or 99, 2000. I'll go 99, 2000 because it's closer to Jmac.
Okay, you got it right. It was actually 99 to 2000.
Oh man.
And we lost to Leicester City in the quarterfinals live on TV that season. We lost a penalty shootout 3-0, having missed all 3 of our penalties. So again, Fulham shows we do not have a good track history when it comes to penalties. Question number 5. Who was the last Fulham player, to score against Spurs? You can choose Daha, Berbatov, Sidwell, or Tom? Who is your answer there, Mark?
I'm going to go with Steve Sidwell.
Okay. And Jmac, what do you got?
Oh, Steve Sidwell, definitely.
Okay. You're actually both correct in this. And the reason being is because he was the last player to actually score for us against Spurs in the 23-2014 season when we were getting relegated. But Daha and Berbatov have both scored against Fulham and Spurs. Carney hasn't scored yet against them at all. So I don't think that's going to hold. I think he will get us a goal here. I do think he will be the one that maybe can nick us a goal. And I think that streak's going to come to an end. So let's do it, Tom. All right, last thing I want to do, guys, I want to talk about our fantasy league. For those of you who have not joined, can people still join in the fantasy league? Or is it
definitely. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So if you haven't joined and you want to join us, I'm going to give you the number here for our personal league in the fantasy league. And of course, this is at fantasy.premierleague.com. Okay. And our personal number is 792968-176694. Again, real quickly, 792968-176694. And again, that's at fantasy.premierleague.com. Jmac or Mark, let me ask you, how did you finish in this competition? I was 100.
You 100?
Yeah, I'm actually
God.
tied with several people at 100. I was surprised, very surprised.
Yeah, I didn't have the best of weeks. I think I got 50, maybe just less, 49.
No, not points. That's where I stand.
Oh, okay.
God bless. If I had 100,
100 points, I was like, you must be doing great. I'm not too sure. I guess 59 points. I think I must be. I don't know. We've got quite a few people in there now, so I think I don't think I'm in the top 100 yet.
That was with me having 62 points.
Yeah, so I'd say I'm probably around between 100 and 150. I'll be happy with that.
J-Mac, do you know how you did?
Yeah, I got 44, and the reason being, it was really annoying. I put Ruben Neves off, and he scored 12 points, and it was such a mistake. And if Sane hadn't come on as a sub for City, Neves would have replaced him. But Sane had to come on in the 94th minute and just get 1 point for me, so it ruined everything. So yeah, really, really bad week.
So I'm not going to lie to you guys. When Fulham dropped down to the championship, I spent all my time paying attention to the championship, and I really have not paid any attention these last couple of years to the Premier League, hardly at all. So I got my son, my 17-year-old son, who is way into all this stuff. He picked my team for me, and that's why I am at ranked 100, tied with all those guys. I will not lie. Well, moving on, when it comes to the fantasy league, let me ask you this, J-Mac. Have you got any tips for anybody out there who needs to get better points or more points on their board?
Yeah, I was tipped this guy, and he did really well for Leicester. If he's their left back, or maybe right back. He's definitely a full back, and his name's Pereira. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and he is just a serial assister, and he's definitely one to have. So it's Leicester fullback, Pereira. Yeah, Pereira, I think his name is, and he's done the business for me this week. He's going to be good, and he's going to be against. I think it's Wolves next. Yeah, Wolves at home. He'll definitely do a lot of assisting.
I do know there was a player off of the Wolves that everybody was saying is like the number one transfer right now, Neves. So I don't know if that's a good tip or not, but that is supposedly the number one transfer currently in the league. Mark, have you got a good tip for everybody?
Yeah, well, I had this tip in mind when I was watching their match. This player is from Bournemouth, and frustratingly enough, I think it was Alan Shearer on Match of the Day. He decided he would sing his praises for the whole day, which has kind of ruined my tip a little bit. But it's Ryan Fraser. I think he's come on a lot in the last week. He's a midfield player. I think he's only priced at 5 or 5.5 million, but the movement off the ball, the ability to get into the box, I think he will have a really, really good season. And I kind of watched him a lot last year, and I was always paying attention to him, and he showed glimpses of how good he could be. And I think this year he could really kick on. I think he could be a bit of a dark horse, and so I definitely reckon to put him into the team this week. They've got a West Ham away, I believe, and after conceding 4 goals, they'll be looking to kind of be a bit more strong in defence. But you never know. West Ham could have. It could just be a very leaky back line, and hopefully Fraser will stick a goal in the net like he did last week. So that's my tip.
Okay. So I currently don't have a tip for you guys. Again, I will do a better job next week and see if I can't find somebody that I would highly recommend. But before I do, I will consult my son, who seems to be a better expert than I am when it comes to the Premier League. Jmac and Mark, I want to thank you both for joining me on this podcast. Listening to both of you, I can tell you definitely have your hearts on your sleeve and you love Fulham and you want us to do well. And I really do think we're all in agreement that there's a lot of positives to take out of our first game, and it's not all just grim and awful looking. So I really do think we're going to have a decent season. Not to put both of you on the spot, but after the first game, I know we didn't have the best result. Where do you think we might land in the table, Jmac?
Come the end of the season, I think. That's the question, right? At the end of the season?
Yeah, just where do you think we'll end up?
I think we'll be a nice 12 between 12th and 14th place. I don't think we're going down. Even after the first game, I can see 3 teams. I've watched all the highlights of the other games. I can see 3 teams worse off than us. And obviously things can change. It's only the first game. But with what the signings we've made and the fact that we're not an oven-baked Premier League side yet, but we have so much quality there to be that. And I really believe that we probably will definitely be mid-table this season.
I love the positivity. I really do. Mark, how you think?
Yeah, well, I've got a few wagers with quite a worrying number of friends now that will finish 15th or above, and a lot of people have bet me that we won't. So I will take anything apart from 15th and above right now, because then I'll be in the money. I'd say 14th, like Jmac said, anything above 14th I'll be happy with. But realistically, if the season carries on like it did against Crystal Palace, we've shown enough that I think we won't be struggling for relegation. So yeah, I'm going to say 14th.
And I agree. I think we showed plenty. I don't think we're going to be anywhere in the relegation zone. We're fighting to be able to stay up. So with that, gentlemen, I do want to remind our readers, check out our website, fulhamfocus.com. We have our latest Q&A out with Paul Watson. He actually was part of the famous Mickey Adams promotion team. Also, you'll probably be listening to this on Tuesday when the show goes live. And John Clark has written an On This Day article looking back to the victory over Man City at the beginning of the Keegan promotion season. At the time, it was a huge thing because Man City were the big favorites to win the league, having just been relegated back to from the Premiership. So check this out. Check out our other things like our quizzes that Dave does. And I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast and will join us next time. Once again, this is Fulham Focus. Thank you so much.